I never imagined that at just 13 years old, I would face death. It seemed like something that happened to much older people, far off in the future. But there I was, lying in a hospital bed, feeling my strength fade with every moment. Machines beeped around me, and doctors moved quickly, their worried expressions growing more intense. They tried everything to help me, but it was clear from their faces that things were getting worse. My parents sat by my side, clutching my hands tightly, tears streaming down their faces. I wanted to reassure them, to tell them that everything would be all right, but I couldn't speak. My body felt impossibly heavy, and my eyelids were so weighted that I could no longer keep them open. Slowly, I slipped into darkness. When I opened my eyes again, everything was different. I wasn't in the hospital bed anymore. In fact, I wasn't in my body at all. I felt light, as though I were made of air. Looking down, I saw myself lying in the hospital bed. My parents were still there, crying, while the doctors worked frantically. It was strange to see myself from above. I tried to call out to them, to tell them I was okay, but no sound came. That's when I noticed it. A warm, glowing light in the corner of the room. It wasn't harsh or blinding, but soft and inviting. It radiated peace and love, and I felt drawn to it. Without even thinking, I began floating toward it. The closer I got, the more calm and free I felt. Every fear and worry melted away, replaced by a sense of warmth and safety, as though the light was wrapping me in a comforting embrace. As I entered the light, my surroundings changed completely. Suddenly, I was standing in a garden more beautiful than anything I could have imagined. The grass beneath my feet was soft, glowing with a vibrant green that seemed alive. Flowers surrounded me in every color, some I didn't even have names for, as if they didn't exist in the world I came from. The air was filled with a fresh, sweet fragrance, a mix of roses and something warm and familiar, like freshly baked bread. As I stood in awe, I began to hear music. At first it was faint, but it grew louder the more I listened. It wasn't like any music I had ever heard before. It was perfect harmony, a heavenly choir that filled me with an unshakable joy. The music wasn't just around me. It felt like it was part of the air itself, making everything come alive. Then I noticed someone approaching. It was a man dressed in a glowing white robe. His face was kind, and his eyes were filled with so much love that I felt like I might cry. Though I had never seen him before, I knew instantly who he was. It was Jesus. He smiled at me, and it felt as though the whole world smiled with him. "Welcome, my child," he said gently, his voice as soft and warm as a summer breeze. "I've been waiting for you." In that moment, all the confusion and fear inside me disappeared. I ran to him and he embraced me. It wasn't just a hug. It felt like all the love in the universe was pouring into me, surrounding me and making me whole. Jesus took my hand, and we began to walk through the garden. With each step, I felt more alive and stronger than I ever had. The grass beneath my feet was cool and soft, and the garden was filled with life. Animals roamed peacefully among the trees, deer, birds, even lions, and they all existed together in perfect harmony. The rustling of leaves, the chirping of birds, and the heavenly music created a symphony of peace. We soon came to a grand tree, its branches heavy with golden fruit, and its shimmering leaves reflecting the light. Jesus reached up, picked a piece of the fruit, and handed it to me. "Eat," he said with a kind smile. "This is the fruit of life." I took a bite, and as the sweet, juicy fruit touched my tongue, I felt an incredible surge of energy. It filled me with strength and vitality. The sick, fragile child in the hospital bed was gone. I was whole, healthy, and alive. As I ate, questions began to fill my mind, questions I had never thought about before, but suddenly felt urgent. I turned to Jesus and hesitated before asking, "Can I ask you something?" He smiled warmly. "Of course, my child. Ask me anything." "When will the world end?" I asked nervously. Jesus looked at me with gentle understanding. "That is something many people wonder about," he said, "but there is no need to fear it. The end of the world is not the end. It is the beginning of something new. When the time comes, I will return to make everything right." I nodded, though I still didn't fully understand. "How will we know when it's going to happen?" I asked. "There will be signs," he said. "You'll hear of wars, natural disasters, and many will turn away from God. But those who love God and live in His light will not need to be afraid. Keep living with love, doing good, and staying close to God. When the time comes, you'll know." I thought for a moment, then asked, "What happens after the world ends?" "There will be a new heaven and a new earth," Jesus said. "No more pain, no more sadness, no more death. Everything will be made new, and those who love God will live with Him forever." The idea filled me with hope, but I had one more question. What about those who don't believe in God? Jesus' face grew somber. "God loves everyone deeply and wants all to be with Him," He said, "but He also gives everyone a choice. Those who choose to reject Him will be separated from Him. That is why it's so important to share God's love with others while there is still time." We walked further through the garden, and I saw more people, some walking, others laughing and singing. It felt like one big family, connected by love and joy. Children played among the flowers, without a care in the world, and older people looked vibrant and full of life. We came to a clear, sparkling river that seemed to flow endlessly. Jesus knelt beside it and touched the water. "This is the river of life," He said. "Its water brings life to everything here." I knelt down too, touching the cool, refreshing water. Instantly, I felt even more alive than before. The river seemed to stretch on forever, winding through the garden and beyond. Eventually, we arrived at a magnificent city. Its walls were made of gemstones that sparkled in the light, and its streets were paved with gold so pure it shone like glass. The entire city was filled with light, not from a sun or moon, but from God Himself. "This is the New Jerusalem," Jesus said. "It is where God lives with His people." As we walked through the city, I recognized some of the people. Figures like Moses, David, and Mary waved at me, their faces radiant with joy. At the center of the city was a great throne, surrounded by brilliant light. I could feel God's presence radiating from it, strong, loving, and just. As we stood there, a beautiful sound filled the air. Angels and people were singing together in perfect harmony, their voices blending into the most magnificent music I had ever heard. It filled me with so much joy that I wanted to join in, but then Jesus turned to me with a gentle smile. "It's almost time for you to go back," He said. My heart sank. "Do I have to?" I asked quietly. "Yes, my child," He said. "There is still work for you to do. People need to hear about God's love, and you can tell them what you've seen here." I was nervous. "Will it hurt to go back?" I asked. Jesus embraced me tightly. "No, it won't hurt," He said. "And remember, I will always be with you, even when you cannot see me." We walked to the edge of the garden where the light grew brighter. Jesus stopped and looked at me with so much love. "Are you ready?" He asked. I took a deep breath, my heart aching to stay. "I'm ready," I said. Jesus smiled warmly. "Go with my blessing and never forget, I love you." The next thing I knew, the light faded and I felt myself floating back. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital bed again. My parents were by my side, their faces filled with worry. When I took a deep breath, their expressions turned to shock and joy. The doctors rushed over, amazed. My parents hugged me tightly, tears of relief streaming down their faces. I had been given a second chance. I knew I had an important mission, to share God's love with others and live each day to the fullest. I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew that Jesus was always with me, and that one day, I would return to that beautiful garden again.